Let's talk about the Old Testament. You know how it is. You open it up, and it can feel like you've been dropped into this huge, ancient library where none of the books are in order. It's just this sprawling collection of history and poetry and prophecy, and well, it can be a lot. But what if I told you there's a hidden system, a simple map that shows you exactly how all 39 of those books connect? Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to find that map.
You know, there's a reason people call it the less explored continent. It's so easy to get lost. You flip open to Isaiah and he's talking about some king or some war, and you're thinking, what is going on right now? Or maybe you're reading one of David's Psalms, but without knowing what was happening in his life, you miss the full impact. It's like wandering without a map. And that's exactly what we're about to fix.
So, how do we actually find our way through this massive landscape? We need a roadmap, a really simple one that doesn't just show you the main highway of the story, but also shows you where all those little scenic routes, the poetry, the prophecy, branch off and connect back. And the good news? That map is way less complicated than you think. It's all built on one simple idea.
Okay, so every good map needs a legend, right? You know, the little key in the corner that tells you what all the symbols mean. Well, that's our first step. It turns out that all 39 books of the Old Testament can be sorted into just 3 categories. That's it, just 3. And once you get this, the whole structure starts to click into place.
And here it is. This is the whole breakdown. You've got 17 books of history, 5 books of what we'll call experience, that's your poetry like Psalms and Proverbs, and then another 17 books of prophecy. Now here is the secret. This is the game changer. Think of those 17 historical books as the spine of the entire Old Testament story. The other 22 books, they aren't separate random stories. They're actually slotted into that historical timeline. They give you the emotional soundtrack and the warnings about the future that were happening during those historical events.
So, we have our legend, history, experience, and prophecy. Awesome. Now we need the main path on our map, and that path is one single continuous story, a story that we can break down into 12 distinct eras. It covers everything, literally from the first verse of Genesis all the way to the centuries right before the New Testament begins.
And that number 12 should be ringing some bells, right? I mean, think about it. We see it all over the Bible. The 12 tribes of Israel, Jesus' 12 disciples. It's almost like it's the Bible's number for building a foundation. And it just so happens to give us this perfect, memorable framework for the entire Old Testament story. So let's walk through them.
All right, let's build the first half of our timeline. Era 1, obviously, is creation, and you'll find that in Genesis. Then that same book, Genesis, introduces us to the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. From there, the story makes a huge leap to the Exodus from Egypt, which is all told in the book of Exodus. That, of course, leads to 40 years of wandering in the desert, which is covered in the book of Numbers. After that, they finally enter the Promised Land during the conquest, led by Joshua. And this period ends in a really dark, chaotic time known as the Era of the Judges. And there you go. The first 6 eras, the foundation of the whole story.
Now for the back half. So after the chaos of the judges, the people demand a king, which kicks off the era of the unified kingdom. But that unity doesn't last. It shatters, leading to this long, painful era of the divided kingdom. And that whole downward spiral ends in this national catastrophe, the captivity in Babylon. But after decades, they're allowed to return from exile, a story you read about in Ezra. And then they begin the incredibly hard work of rebuilding Jerusalem under Nehemiah. And that basically brings the story to a close, leading into those 400 silent years before the New Testament. And that's it, our complete 12-era timeline. This is the highway through the Old Testament.
Okay, so we have the legend for our map, and we have the main road. Now for the really cool part, the aha moment. Let's overlay these two things and just watch how all the other books, all that poetry and all that prophecy, snap perfectly into place on this timeline. This is where it all just clicks into place. Look at this. The book of Job, it wasn't just some random fable. It takes place way back in the era of the patriarchs. And all that amazing poetry in Psalms and Proverbs, that is literally the soundtrack to the kingdom era, written by the kings living through it. And what about all those prophets? They weren't just shouting randomly. The vast majority of them were writing during the divided kingdom, warning everyone about the disaster that was coming. Daniel and Ezekiel, they wrote their prophecies from inside the captivity. and the last few prophets were encouraging the people during the rebuilding. You see, it's not random at all. Every single book has a home. It has an address on our map.
So this map isn't just some neat little chart to look at. It's a tool. It's practical. It gives you a game plan, so you never have to feel like you're just opening the Old Testament and hoping for the best ever again. Let's look at 2 really simple ways you can start using this map, like right now. Here are 2 awesome ways to start exploring. First, you could try the era-by-era plan. For this, you just pick an era, like the kingdom, and you read everything connected to it. You get the full 360-degree view. You'd read the history in Samuel and Kings, but then you'd read the Psalms to actually feel what David was feeling. Or there's the story-first plan. With this one, you just read those 11 main backbone history books straight through, almost like a novel. Just get that core narrative down first. Then you can go back and sprinkle in all the poetry and prophecy, because now you know exactly where they fit.
You know, in the end, the best commentary on the Bible is more of the Bible. Once you see the structure, the books start explaining each other. The history gives you the context for the prophets, the Psalms give a voice to the kings. That vast, intimidating continent, it now has roads, it has landmarks, it has a clear path forward. It's not a place to get lost anymore. It's a world just waiting for you to explore it. So the only question left is, which road are you going to take first?